Good afternoon, I'm KHOU 11 meteorologist Chris Ramirez with an update of what we're expecting to see for the next couple of days. Of course, today has been fairly calm. We haven't received much, if not any, rain across the Houston area, but that's all going to change as we head into tomorrow. There is more rain chances on the way, and we could see some strong to severe storm activity as we go into Sunday. All thanks to another disturbance that's going to be moving on through southeast Texas. Of course, the National Weather Service is keeping most of southeast Texas under that flash flood watch, as we head into later on tomorrow evening. They're extending that to tomorrow evening. We could see up to 1 to 3 inches of rain and isolated 4 or more inches of rain expected for tomorrow. Also, the excessive rain outlook for Sunday does include Houston under a slight risk for some flooding potential as we head into tomorrow, because we're expecting waves of some heavy rain activity. And unfortunately, we really are going to have to keep an eye on those waterways that are already undergoing some flooding across southeast Texas. So as we look at what we have to really keep an eye on is those waterways that are out of its banks already. This is from the Harris County Flood Control District. San Jacinto River, major flood stage at the moment at Sheldon. The west and east forks of the San Jacinto River is at major flood stage. That's beyond the Lake Houston Dam, as well as Peach Creek. It's at moderate flood stage at Splendora, as well as Cedar Bayou, which is out of its banks at FM 1942. Also, some waterways that are nearing the top of its banks are not necessarily undergoing flood stage, but they're kind of pretty high. That might, any additional rainfall could bring it a little bit higher. We're also keeping an eye on Spring Creek off in the northern Harris County, Cypress Creek along 249, as well as I-45, as well as Walnut Creek. It's nearing the top of its banks at Joseph Road. Good thing to know about Cypress Creek that it's not at flood stage yet, but nearing the top of its banks, all thanks to the heavy rain north of the Houston area. Also, Willow Creek at 249. That's Highway 249. It's nearing the top of its banks across northern Harris County. So most of that rain within the past 2 days fell in north of Houston. As we go to looking right now, we're mostly quiet, just hazy skies, fairly humid conditions. Wind speeds are fairly low, but we are expecting it to be still a rather calm day. If any storm does flare up later on this afternoon, it's going to be more isolated in nature, but expecting those temps to drop into the upper 70s. Right now, we're seeing quiet conditions across Houston, but that's not really the case for areas near Livingston. They've been dealing with some downpours and some strong storms that have been moving through Cleveland, even Livingston. That has really packed a bit of a punch. There was a special weather statement of a good 2 hours ago with some 40-mile-an-hour winds, and it's looking more likely at the current moment for today. Most of those isolated storms are remaining northeast of the Houston area, and that's towards the extreme northern portions of our coverage area, especially as we head in today. So a 30% chance of showers and storms for today. That is really going to start changing as we head into the overnight hours. We are still monitoring those flood warnings that are in effect for today. Everywhere you see it in green, that does include areas along the Grand Parkway, even the west and east forks of the San Jacinto River. Like I just mentioned, there is a few isolated showers moving through FM 1485, as well as near Porter and Roman Forest along the I-69 corridor. But as we go into looking at what we're expecting to see in terms of those live river flood gauges, we're just continuing to track those rising river levels. The good thing is that we're getting a bit of a break for today, so those river levels can have some time to drain off, but there's still just tremendous amount of rain that has fallen within the past 2 days. So we're tracking this next disturbance that is going to be moving through tomorrow. That is going to bring that rainfall as it makes its way across southeast Texas. We're going to see this storm system originate in West Texas. That is going to start moving eastward towards the Houston area as we head into the early morning hours tomorrow. So weather models hinting around that this should start around 4 to 5 o'clock in the morning. We are expecting our first surge of storms and rain, and we could see some damaging winds with this as we head into tomorrow afternoon. Weather models are really not in agreement in terms of how long this first surge is lasting. One model is showing, our in-house RPM or our in-house graph model is showing that this could really be in 2 separate distinct waves with a break in between. But of course, another short-term model that we use is called the HRRR. That is showing that we could still see these downpours lasting throughout the day into the evening hours. But that second surge likely to be arriving between the hours of 5 and 6 p.m. and and that's when we could see some of those stronger storms moving through. And just keep in mind that any additional rainfall is going to contribute to flash flooding north of the Houston area. So those folks that are dealing with the flooding impacts at the moment, soils and the grounds are super saturated, and any additional rain likely leading to flooding concerns, even more so than what we're already seeing. So we're really going to have to keep an eye on the situation north of Houston in terms of what to expect for tomorrow, as this rain chance will definitely start increasing. We're expecting that rain to wrap up around the overnight hours between around 10 and 11, but we could very well see some isolated showers and storms across the area lingering into the early hours of Monday. And then Monday, from much of next week, the only thing we're really going to have to worry about is the increasing temperatures. But looking at the forecasted rainfall for the next 24 hours, we could see between 2 to 4 inches of rain. So just keep in mind that even though you see the 2 to 4 inches of rain from Houston towards Galveston, we could still see that north of the Houston area. So take the location of those numbers as a grain of salt, that anywhere could receive up to 4 inches of rain with these downpours that are expected for tomorrow. And just also keep in mind that a significant flooding risk is still going to be in place for our northern areas, as they're already still undergoing some flooding from the recent rains that we received within the past 5 days. We received up to 22.5 inches of rain in and around the Trinity area. Some locations receiving close to 2 feet of rain within the past few days, especially north in portions of Montgomery County. So keep that in mind for tomorrow. Be extra weather aware. Have one or more ways to receive those weather alerts as we go into tomorrow afternoon. And the good news is that starting on Monday is when we're going to finally get this much needed break from this rain activity as we go into the next few days. But other than that, we are expecting this to continue in terms of those rain chances returning for tomorrow, as another disturbance is likely to send more of those showers and storms our way. Definitely severe weather season here across Texas and even across the Houston area. Not uncommon for this to be happening. We've had the Memorial Day floods that happened. We had the tax day floods. So it's not uncommon for this type of event to occur around this time of year, especially here across the Houston area. So just to kind of wrap this all up, if you're just now joining the stream, I'm going to kind of go over what I just discussed, and we are going to go ahead and show you what I was discussing within the past 5 minutes. So if you want to hear this information again, you can still join me here, but just keep in mind that flash flood watch will be in effect, flood watch rather, is in effect until Sunday evening. That's being extended until tomorrow evening, as we are expecting more rounds of showers and storms with another disturbance moving our way. Of course, the Storm Prediction Center is increasing that risk for flooding under a slight risk. That is 2 out of 4 for much of southeast Texas. That does include the Houston area. Areas around Galveston, Ingleton are under that marginal risk, which will be a 1 out of 4. But just keep in mind for tomorrow that we are still monitoring those waterways that are already undergoing some flooding. And so from the Harris County Flood Control District, they're showing that the San Jacinto River is at major flood stage at Sheldon. It is out of its banks, the west and east forks of the San Jacinto River, along the entire all key points of the river is at major flood stage out of its banks. We're keeping it on Peach Creek, moderate flood stage at Splendora, and also Cedar Bayou at FM 1942. Also areas that are not too much of a concern, but we're really going to have to just kind of keep an eye on these waterways of north of Harris County, or northern Harris County rather, is Spring Creek. It's near flood stage, not quite there yet. Cypress Creek, not in flood stage yet, but it's nearing the top of its banks. Of course, I lived not too far from Cypress Creek, and I saw it fairly high there as yesterday. But Walnut Creek nearing the top of its banks at Joseph Road. Willow Creek is nearing the top of its banks at State Highway 249. And so just keep in mind that these are not undergoing flooding right now, but something to keep an eye on. If rain falls along these creeks and waterways, we could start seeing some issues with that potential flooding as we head into the next 24 hours. Very calm conditions for today. Calm conditions lasting through today. We are seeing some isolated showers and storms, mainly northeast of the Houston area, and around Livingston, even Cleveland, portions of Lake Livingston, dealing with these downpours that are continuing to move through. Most of the rain remaining well to the northeast of Houston for today. We still could get a few showers and storms making their way through the Houston area, but like I said, they're remaining east of 45 over Beaumont. But just keep in mind that some of those areas that are receiving some of the heavy rain are areas that are still under that flood warning, especially just north of Cleveland, near in portions of San Jacinto, Montgomery, and even portions of Harris County. But those isolated storms northeast of the Houston area that might affect the Trinity River as it flows downstream, but no rain on radar at the moment here across the Houston area. All we're dealing with is just rather muggy and warm conditions for today, but that's all going to change for tomorrow as we go into tomorrow morning, as another disturbance is going to be making its way through southeast Texas. So again, like I said, that first wave starting around 4 to 5 o'clock tomorrow morning. We are expecting there's a good chance that we could see some severe storms that have some damaging winds as well as some large hail with it. So not only are we going to be dealing with the flooding situation, we're going to have to really keep an eye on what the potential impacts from the storms as they blow through the Houston area, because all of southeast Texas will be under the gun for this rain event, for this forecasted rain event for tomorrow as we go into the next few days. So several waves of rain expected across the area starting tomorrow morning, and then likely we're going to see another surge of that rain moving through in the afternoon hours between 4 and 5 o'clock. So like I said, if we get those damaging winds, it only takes 40 miles an hour to 50 miles an hour to knock out power to some locations. You want to have one or two ways to receive those weather alerts. So if you lose power and you can't watch TV, you could always resort to your phone app or getting those alerts. And you can always do that with the KHOU 11 app. We're expecting that rain to wrap up on Monday. That's the good news in all of this, but just keep in mind that areas north of the Houston area that are experiencing this catastrophic flooding, they do have the potential for this rain tomorrow to contribute more to this flooding threat, as they were already experiencing evacuations as well as areas that have been inundated with water as within the past 2 days. So soils very saturated north of Houston. Any more rainfall likely to get to start that flooding risk across the area. And like I said, rain chances ramping up on Monday. We're going to see a little bit of a high pressure system move on in that will bring us somewhat calmer conditions. But as we head into the next 7 days, expect those temps to remain mostly warm and muggy. This is a good hint and a good reminder that summer is just around the corner here across southeast Texas, if it's not already, because we are going to see those high temps topping out in the potentially 90s for next week as we head into much of next week. So rain chance for tomorrow, upper 80s for Monday. We're going to have a little bit of a break, but the good news is that as we head towards Mother's Day weekend, we're looking more likely we could see a cold front move through, and we could have some pleasant temperatures as well as cooler temperatures with highs in the lower 80s and overnight lows in the 60s. So good weather expected for the next weekend, not necessarily this weekend, but we're going to have Sunday to really keep an eye on that forecast for tomorrow and make sure to have those one or two ways to receive weather alerts for tomorrow, as we are expecting another round of heavy rain and storms here across southeast Texas. And as always, you can stay up to date on the latest weather forecast on KHOU.com as well as on the KHOU 11 weather, or the